All right, what's up, guys? Welcome into Fourth and Wrong Daily, our daily podcast we have been doing now for 2 weeks. I'm very excited for today's interview. One of my favorite people on radio, one of the nicest dudes, hardest working dudes that I've met doing this job, Garrett Chapman from 929 The Game, here to talk about Georgia Tech, the ACC, and all things Atlanta. Garrett, how you doing, man?
Fantastic. It's been a crazy week, but you know what? At the end of the day, the college football never stops. You know, we
Yeah.
do we do a podcast every single Sunday. I do it once a week, and it's like
Mhm.
I don't I we're just jam packed with stuff. You do it every day. I might need to do what you do.
Dude, so I don't want to do it. I didn't want to do it every day. I've actually really enjoyed it because it's made me be consistent and something that I think I probably needed help with was being consistent on stuff just
Mhm.
from the job in general. But like I remember like when I was telling my new boss, Matt Moscona, and he's like, you should be doing a show every day. And I was like, I don't want to fucking do that. That sounds awful. Like I don't like what am I gonna talk he's like, dude, just talk about whatever every day. I feel like and I was like, okay, we thought about doing this. It'd be like a 5 minute show. And he's like, dude, like 20, 30 minutes. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like, I've got people to argue with on Twitter. I don't want to have all that time be devoted to this. But, dude, off the bat, so you said it's been a crazy week, and it has been with college football stuff. We'll get into all that. But,
Yeah.
like, off camera, show everyone, or like the people watching right now, the new addition to the family.
Oh, he's currently chewing on something. He will find something to chew. This little man,
That
we've
is
had him
cool.
for exactly 1 week now.
That's awesome.
I have had exceptionally little sleep. Named in
Yeah.
honor of Ozzy Albies. His name is Ozzy,
Okay.
and
I like
he
that.
is So the girlfriend and I, we got the puppy. Our first date that we ever went on. Ozzy Albies hit a walk-off home run in the Braves versus the Reds. Hit a walk-off
Okay.
home run, and as long as he doesn't chew the cord, I think we're gonna be just fine.
Yeah.
But no, he's been a great little puppy, you know, and
Yeah.
he's got a big sister who's also sitting behind me. She
Okay.
doesn't want to come up here, but you know, he's been a rock star. We're
Yeah.
learning how to crate train, and so that's
Uh,
been it's been a challenge. But you know what,
Yeah, well, you said you got with a girlfriend and then said our first date. I was like, please God, tell me you did not get a dog with her on the first date because that is not a good
no,
idea. I
no,
dated someone for 5 years and had dogs with them. And that was not a good idea.
oof,
But it is awesome, man. It's a really good looking dog. I'm super happy for you.
he's a sweetheart.
Good dude, good. Pepper's over here. I don't want to lift her. She's I think in a mood. She's tired and waiting for 80-year-olds to walk by outside. But anyway, so listen, you are still in Atlanta. Obviously, I've lived there forever. We've talked about this
Mhm.
before. We worked, we've done some stuff at 99 The Game before. You do a tremendous job there. And I think that, like, so when I left, it was like everything was always kind of the same. Like, Georgia Tech kind of sucked. The Falcons are always going to be the Falcons. The Braves were, like, doing better, but still, like, that's just like how Atlanta sports have gone.
Mhm.
You're somebody I love to follow on social media because like you have been such a huge proponent of the Brent Key era in Atlanta with Georgia Tech
Mhm.
coming out of spring. What's the mood like? I don't want to say around the city because I don't think anyone cares or knows to care yet.
Mhm.
But what's the mood around like the program right now? Because it feels like it's pretty exciting.
Brent Key has done a very good job of building this program under the radar. He's been there for a few years. Of course, he was there with Jeff Collins, and Jeff
Yeah,
Collins was, I'll just say, I mean, it was a disaster. I mean, there's no
we
real
thought it was gonna be so
sugarcoating.
good.
It was brutal. It was
Yeah,
brutal over there with Jeff Collins. It was a big marketing campaign, and it was terrible. And
yeah.
Brent Key comes in, and I think he after the spring game, he had some comments specifically about building sort of brick by brick. I
Oh
hate
god.
cliches like that.
Yeah.
He didn't say that. Obviously, I'm saying that because
Yeah.
I lack the intelligence to really say something smart. But you know, he's building the program day by day, and he's
Yeah.
doing the little things really effectively. And that starts in recruiting. And he's a great recruiter. He's brought in some talented players. He attacked the portal. And most importantly, he got the quarterback position right. I mean, Haynes King is the dude,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure we'll get into Haynes King plenty on this podcast, so I'll save some of that for later. But the wide receiver room, it's stacked. The defense needs a lot of work, but Brent Key has really established a culture here
Yeah.
at Georgia Tech. And not everybody really is aware of it yet because of the ebbs and flows of last year, but they were about this close from really being a like a really good football team last year. I mean, you saw what they were against North Carolina. They come out and get that win on Halloween. That
Yeah.
everyone saw what happened against
Well,
Miami, where
real quick,
Mario
North
Cristobal
Carolina
doesn't take a
thing.
knee.
Dude, yeah, that was unbelievable. Real quick on the North Carolina thing, I think people forget this because this is one of the things I think if you're building a program, this is something you can go into a recruit's home with and be like, hey, here's a positive. Like, for as much as I know we have a ton of Georgia fans in here. This is going to be, I'm so happy you're here, Garrett. I know this is going to be one of the lower viewed episodes because people hate when I talk about Tech. It's my second favorite team. I love Tech. I love Bobby Dodd. I will go to war for that stadium always on social media and everyone. I think it's the best. And like it's like, dude, I always say this. It's worth going just for the Instagram post because like the city of Atlanta, like the scene, the background is just incredible. It's perfect. But I mean, like I think one of the things with Tech that people don't realize that they've done a really good job of, right? Mm-hmm. That UNC win last year was at home. It's the third straight year they beat a ranked UNC team. It's a third year in a row, and that's with Matt Brown as your head coach. Like, I think that's something you can build off of.
With an NFL quarterback, mind you, Sam Howell under center 2 years ago, 2 of the last 3 years. Last year, of course, Drake May. Tez Walker is also a bona fide top 70 player in the NFL draft last year. Yeah. I mean, they were a loaded team. I think they were a better team this year than they have been in a number of years, and they still come into Bobby Dodd Stadium and they still got shell shocked. You know, I mean, for whatever reason, UNC is snake bit. And look, maybe this is the year they have to travel up to Chapel Hill this year. I don't know who's more excited about that. I mean, UNC or Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, just in the sense that they can get up there and do it again, or North Carolina that they can get things right. But look, I think Brent Key's done a really good job. He's done a very good job. And you talk about him selling the program. He has a couple of those types of wins. They went toe-to-toe with Louisville, a team that just played in the ACC championship game, that played very well down the stretch in 2023. Don't forget, they went toe-to-toe with Georgia for a number of a large portion of that game. They were right there in it, right at the very end. And it wasn't until the last drive for Georgia Tech that they really got knocked out of that one. And comparing that to previous seasons where, I mean, Georgia's been the best team in the country for the last 3 years. And like the 2 of those last 3 years, Georgia Tech's off the field and done. And Georgia's got their subs in by halfway through the third quarter and probably could have done it at halftime. Last year, it took them all the way up to the end of the game. Right. And honestly, I think Alabama might have seen some things from Haynes King and company, and they've employed some of those tactics in the SEC championship game. So, look, at the end of the day, I think Georgia Tech's in the right direction. The schedule next year is not easy. I mean, you've got Notre Dame, you've got Florida State, you've got North Carolina on the road, and obviously you're Georgia on the road. And then you have stalwarts like NC State, Miami, and all these other. It's a brutal schedule. I mean, you're at Blacksburg playing Virginia Tech. Like, people are going to talk about this team. I think this team is going to be pretty damn good next year. I think they're going to be one of the better teams in the ACC, but the record may not show it. You know, like, this could be a 6-win team next year, but they could be a significantly better ball club than they were last year. And I think a lot of that has to do with Brent Key, with Haynes King, with the guys that they have here. A lot of these dudes, I mean, these are dudes, and they really weren't that way, like even just like 2 years ago.
Well, Haynes King is a former 5-star, right? Like, I mean, people forget this. Like, and listen, maybe it's not the best example to bring up because I understand what happened with the Jimbo Fisher era at Texas A&M. Sure. But like first off, Haynes King was the quarterback he chose. Like, you know what I mean? Like when he was at A&M in 2021, and then all of a sudden he gets hurt, and the season's kind of gone, and you know, they get that win obviously against Alabama, but like King was a guy that was like highly recruited. He's a very underrated athlete, mainly because he looks like King Joffrey from Game of Thrones, and nobody would expect him to be a good athlete, which is not his fault. I make fun of it all the time, but I mean, I tell you what, I was so excited to watch them beat Gus Malzahn and UCF in the bowl game last year. Like you said this. Like, one of the things I love most about what we get to see now in this day of college football. Like, it's cool to build things to the portal. I think Tech could be a pretty good team in the portal era, like to be able to get other guys. Pepper. They get other guys from from Bama. I know they got who's the receiver they got from Bama from a couple years ago?
Chase Lane.
Yes. So you also have like you said, King comes from an SEC school. You got a bunch of different dudes you're able to get in the portal. But the thing I love the most, there's something to be said for having a head coach that has a passion for that program, and not just because they're paying a lot of money, or it's because they know, like, you know, it's a bore and Bama. It's like, oh, of course it's a Bama job because it's a Bama job or whatever. You see it with Kirby Smart. I'll tell you another example we saw it with, to probably the most extreme level was Coach O at LSU. Like Coach O wanted that job since he was a kid. Britt Key is a guy that played in the trenches at Georgia Tech and was a part of those years where they beat Georgia 3 years in a row. I don't think they're going to be anywhere on Georgia's level by any means, but I think that he is going to bring some sort of like sense of pride back with it, which I really, really am excited about. But like you mentioned it, like the schedule is brutal. Like this could be a season where it's like on paper, maybe you don't take a step forward, but what do you think would be like defined as success or successful in year 2?
Consistency. I mean, that's really the number one thing. Last year that plagued them terribly. And I mean, you start the year and you have Louisville at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And you are effectively running them out of the building in the first half of the game. A lot of people forget how dominant Georgia Tech was in that first half of the game. I got a dog going after my sock. Sorry.
They were up like 28-10, right?
Yeah, they were up big. Yeah. I think it was 20-10, something like that. And then I think they don't score again for the rest of the game. And Louisville uses that and they just go on this run, an undefeated run for 10 weeks or so. I mean, then they turn around the next week. They get the win against South Carolina State. I mean, it's an HBCU, a small FCS school. I mean, you're expected to get those wins. But then you play Bowling Green, and Bowling Green,
money on that, Garrett.
You can't stop them on third down.
No.
And all of a sudden, I just gave him the sock. It's over.
You're fine.
I give up on the sock. For those of you just joining us, I have a golden retriever puppy who is going to war with my socks right now. But no, look, at the end of the day, like they could not get off the field on third down. They just had to continuously stay on the field, and that's one of the biggest reasons why. I mean, look, you lost your defensive coordinator after the game. Mm-hmm. He got demoted, and now you have a brand new defensive staff. And look, it's just consistency. Even Haynes King, I mean, he threw 16 interceptions last year. You need to have a little bit more from your quarterback. You cannot have those turnovers. Many of those were backbreaking. I think he threw 2 or 3 or 4 against Bowling Green specifically.
Dude,
and it's brutal when you do that.
In the first half of that game specifically, and I was like, they're going to come out like the world on fire, because that's kind of what we saw at times with Haynes King, and he can do that, right? Like he's a good enough player. Like I think I'm not using this player as a comp, but I'm using it because it comes to mind in terms of one of the things that is so backbreaking about a player that is able to use their legs and still has a really good arm and all that kind of stuff. They can do stuff not even outside of the pocket, but like evading the rush, stepping up into the pocket, and like and like you saw the play against Miami, right? Like one of the things that made Jaden Daniels so great is that like third and long, like he would have this. You're just hoping you're getting off the field, and all of a sudden you have this like not just like it's 3rd and 14, you have like a 40-yard run, something like that. I'm not saying Haynes King is Jordan Daniels, but I am saying that Haynes King is like has the ability to be like really good through the air and with his legs. Yeah. But like there was a lot of times last year and it was against lesser competition where he was like not up to what he needed to be.
He just didn't look crisp at times, and look, he was a Jekyll and Hyde very often last season. I mean, like he's one of the best returning passers in the ACC. I'd venture to say he's the best returning passer. He is the best returning passer in the ACC. Of course, you can make the argument for DJ Uiagalelei or maybe Cam Ward or something like that. I mean, even Kyron Jones from Virginia Tech. But I think I'm pretty biased when it comes to that sort of situation because I have to watch him every single Saturday, and plus I see him in practice and the way he carries himself. But he's been a Jekyll and Hyde, and he'll be the first to tell you that. He's the first one who'll own up to it, and he'll say it. And if he just doesn't put Georgia Tech in bad position with he'll take bad sacks every now and then because he's trying to do too much with his legs. He'll try to fit it into some tight windows and just get burned. But look, lots of quarterbacks do that when they adjust to the college level.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have a lot of starting experience. You talked about him being the first choice at Texas A&M. The dude couldn't stay on the field because he kept getting hurt. And look, he was just as talented as the guy they have there now, Connor Wegman, great talented player, but it's just experience. And you saw how much better he got throughout the course of the season. He had some of those games where, I mean, some of those interceptions, of course, were not exactly his fault. He's got some undersized wide receivers. And look, sometimes you just go up against a more physical bunch like you saw at Clemson. And Clemson just bullied them. And it was just a brutal situation there. But sometimes those types of things are just going to happen. And your guys are just not as good, or I'm going to say as good, but as big necessarily as your opponents. And And he got burned by that a couple of times. Most of the time, it came off of him trying to do a little bit too much. But he can certainly do it. If he gets hot, he's as good as anybody in the ACC, especially almost as good as anybody in the country.
So, like I said, I'm excited to see them this year. I think it's something that's gonna be fun to keep up with. I really do because probably somebody in the minority here, but I just from growing up in Atlanta, I love it when Georgia Tech's good at college football. I'm not saying that college football is better when they're good, but I love when Georgia Tech is good at football, and it just there's something about like playing a game on the flats at 3:30 late in the fall and stuff, and it not costing $14 to get a ticket. You know what I mean? Like it's there's something like for me at least special about that. Real quick, two more topics before we get you out of here.
Sure.
The ACC. You mentioned it, like some of the stuff that's going on, like going into this season. A couple of those teams that Tech was able to get past last year, like Miami.
Yeah.
Like we expect Miami to be a lot better this year. Is it between them, Florida State, maybe Clemson? Like those are the teams I think that are getting the most hype. Is there anyone that we're overlooking in the ACC that you think is going to be better than other people think?
I'm going to look specifically at Syracuse. I think that's one that could be very interesting. Of course, you have the new head coach with Fran Brown, who was the secondary coach over at UGA.
Yeah.
Really good recruiter. He brought in the defensive line coach to be his defensive coordinator from Texas A&M. Another rabid recruiter. I mean, like, look, and then you can bring in Kyle McCord to be your starting quarterback, who, of course, he got run out of town at Ohio State. But that's not because he was a bad quarterback. It's because they lost to Michigan for the third year in a row, and somebody had to be the scapegoat. And you knew it wasn't going to be the head coach. Ryan Day wasn't going to go to town for that one. But look, Kyle McCord is he's going after my feet again. he's getting into the I'm sitting here trying to evade him. I'm just going to pick him up.
Yeah, just pick him up. Have him on the show.
Yeah, here he goes. For anybody who's not looking, here we go. This guy's been ferociously going after my feet for the last 5 minutes. But no, I mean, I think they could be really good. It may not all come together this coming season, but they were a better team than a lot of people gave them credit for. I know we saw them at Georgia Tech last year, and Georgia Tech's going to go up on the road to go see them. I want to say week 2, their third game of the season, of course. But I mean, the ACC, I mean, I don't think there's going to be a team that ended up being like Louisville last year. They're just going to come out of nowhere and just be this incredible new team. Fran Brown, I mean, he's a first-time head coach. I don't expect him really to come out and set the world on fire, but I think he can take some big steps forward. He's somebody who I'm at the very least interested as a college football fan to see what he can do. I'm going to put him down again. I'm going to try this again.
Somebody said, now that there's proof of the puppy, I'll allow it.
Exactly. But now he goes right back to the feet. But look, I think Syracuse is going to be a very interesting team to watch this year. I like the idea of Kyle McCord. They're playing in the big old dome up there. And I mean, the schedule is kind of forgiving. It's not exactly Louisville forgiving, but they trade away some really big time opponents for some not quite so big time. You know, like they go from Power 5 to FCS type opponents. So they'll be a bowl team for sure. Maybe 7, 8, 9 wins.
So listen, we're close on this, man. And we're joined by Garrett Chapman, 90% of the game. Just overall great dude, works harder than anyone I've met in the business. But I wanted to ask you about Michael Penix because he's on the graphic.
Of course.
But it's my show, and I can talk about whatever I want. And I don't want to talk about Michael Penix because I'm in a great mood right now. Sure. And I'm not even making this up. They're trying to be funny, but our listeners know me well enough to know that I'm very transparent about it. Saying the words and the name Michael Penix just reminded me that I haven't taken my antidepressants today. So that's something I need. That's a good wake-up call for me.
What you got to do, man?
Yeah. So I want to ask you about this. This is just hypothetical and something I've always thought about. And I just want to get your opinion on it. I know we've heard people talk about like the G4 versus Power 5 and like breaking that up, and that's probably where we're headed. I have a whole other idea. I think there's certain teams and certain leagues, like we see it with the MAC playing on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. I think that there's like certain teams where you should have their entire schedule be on Thursday and Friday night. Like, and I mean, Syracuse falls into that. I used to love like early 2010s, Boise State being a Friday night staple, right? And having some of these programs that maybe that's what they do with G4, where it's like you don't want to impede with high school football, I guess, but I don't think anybody like gives a shit for the most part, like on a national level. I mean, like maybe but I mean, like, but do you think that having something like that where you're kind of building up the little guys again and giving them more of a presence, do you think that's something we'll see or something you'd even like?
I will just say this, and just to start, I vehemently disagree with anybody ever playing football on Fridays except for high school. I just where I stand. I know a lot of teams do it just because it's the open air time, and so at the end of the day, it's like I do understand why they do it, but I don't know. I think it's terrible for recruiting too. I mean, for anybody who wants to bring in official visitors for a college football game, makes it pretty tough when the guys you're trying to recruit are playing football at that
Garrett,
time.
I didn't think it through. I get it.
So, no, I don't like that idea. Thursday night, you're never going to compete with the NFL. That's going to be difficult. And then if you go in and you do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, do you really want to turn it around Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? I mean, you're competing with what, Dancing with the Stars? I mean, what?
You're not wrong, but
it's American Idol.
Yeah,
it's not. People aren't watching TV. People aren't really watching it at that point. I mean, look. I mean, I'm a Georgia Southern grad. I love the Eagles. I grew up a Georgia fan. Like, full disclosure for everybody, I wear it on my sleeve. I'm not hiding anything. But it's like weekday games in college football feel dirty. And at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit about who's going to be watching from the national audience. I'm a Georgia Southern guy. I'm going to watch. I got an angry puppy now. Pick my feet up off the ground, and now he's angry. But apologies about the puppy, everybody. I'm sorry. But it's like it's a regional sport, and it's for the alumni. And Georgia Southern, I'm going to watch Georgia Southern football as much as I possibly can, and I'll take out time in my day, and I'm going to play it. I'm going to watch it on Saturdays. Yeah. And if I'm a college kid, I don't want to be tailgating on a Tuesday to go see a game because why? Because somebody in Washington may or may not watch it. Like, I don't really care what the viewing pleasure of the people in New York City. I want to tailgate.
I love the passion of what you're saying.
Yeah.
But I have to be honest, all I'm hearing from you is I'm a responsible person and not a degenerate gambler, so I don't care if there's weekday football. And that's fine.
Man, I take advantage of my Maction. Look, the Mac After Dark during the week is one of the most exciting things in all of television, much less college football. Yeah. Look, it is unbelievable, and I love it, and it's fun. That's for the degenerate gambler and me too. I enjoy that side of it, and I'm always going to have it on my screen. But it's like at the end of the day, is it like a fix-all? No, I don't think it is. Yeah. I think it actually actively detracts from what you're trying to do. If you're the group of five, I wouldn't want to go for it. It's not something that I want to do because you're trying to build the programs up. Because, I mean, you look at TCU, that's a program that was in the group of five just 15, 20 years ago, and they just played in a national championship 2 years ago. We won't talk about the result of that game, but they still made the playoff, and now they're up. I mean, Cincinnati's another example. I mean, there are programs who move up from those FCS ranks, and they're not going to do that if they start playing games on Tuesdays and Wednesdays.
That's fair. All right, Garrett. Listen, I know you get your hands full over there and your feet full, which is weird. But I appreciate you joining us. Tell them where they can find your stuff on a daily basis, and we'll have to do this again soon, man.
Of course, man. So you can find my stuff pretty much everywhere. I mean, I just broadcasted a soccer match for NFHS yesterday. On Tuesday, I was doing the Atlanta United match, so you can find all that. 929thegame.com, all the recap from all of that. Any soccer fans out there. All my Georgia Tech coverage you can find. Sorry?
Are we good this year?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're going to be – Atlanta United's going to be pretty solid. Like, they'll be just fine. They're slumping a little bit. They're on a 5-match winless streak right now, but they're going to be fine. They're dealing with some injuries, and people are going to come back healthy. They'll be okay. But they play again on Saturday. I'll have the pre- and post-game there on Sports Radio 92.9 The Game. I'm there Monday through Friday. You can find me there producing the Steakhouse, jumping in there, talking all things Atlanta sports. And we'll talk plenty about Michael Penix, and I have plenty of opinions. So we'll save that for next time.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it. We'll do it again soon.
Absolutely.
All right, brother.